In this video, we'll have a look at the 24-port PoE switch from Unifi and then replace this 24-port PoE switch with this one. All right, I am back in my office and this is the office server cabinet, and Unifi sent me this 24-port PoE switch. So first we're gonna, take it out of the box, have a look at it, see what it does, and then I'm gonna use this instead of that, and I'll tell you why. Yes, all right, let's have a look what's in this box. So here's the box. We all love opening things, don't we? I always swore I would never do unboxing videos, but that seems to be what I do. There we go. Anyway, typical Unifi packaging, very clean, very neat. There's a box here, and that obviously comes with all the gubbins you need to install it in the rack. So there's the two brackets for it. There's the power cord, which is an American power cord in this case, so I'm just going to use the one that's already in there. And then a bunch of screws and stuff for it, which are in here. Not as interesting as what is here, which is the switch itself. So, by box. Always well packaged. Again, small footprint. It's quite nice actually. It's not very big, as you can see. It's a shallow depth, so it'll fit in my server cabinet, which is not very deep either. There we go. So there we go. That's the unit. So there's, whoops, I got it upside down even. So we have the little display, which is all the second gen stuff. I think it's second gen. That means you can see the stats, but actually also means you can use AR. I know, I've got another video on that, link there. And then it has 24 ports, hence the name, and 16 of them have PoE plus, so up to here. And then you got 8 ports which are not PoE. And then you have 2 ports here which are SFP, so 1 gigabyte SFP ports. So if you connect, multiple switches, or you say your UDM Pro SE to this, then it's a good idea to use the SFP connection. You don't clog up these. And then on the back, we just have the power cord, and that's it. That's all there is. So very basic. It's a layer 2 switch, not layer 3. If you need layer 3, you get the PoE 24 Pro. This is not the Pro. It has 90 watts of power budget. So that's worth keeping in mind if you need more than that. And yeah, that's about it. It's a pretty simple thing. It's very good. And it's quiet. It's fanless. Right. Okay. Okay, so just want to check one thing before you might upgrade to, say, from what I'm doing is from the 250 watt Gen 1 switch, 24 port switch, to now the PoE 24 switch, which only has 90 watts of power budget. I just want to check that I'm actually not using more than now 90 currently, so I can swap them directly over. So here I'm on my Unifi network controller, I'm on the devices. I'll have a look at my Office 24 port switch, and you can see there's a bunch of things connected to it, such as my UA, my Unifi Access, which I've made a few videos on, and my LED lights as well, which is just above me here, lighting me lovely. But if you click on ports, you can see which ports are used, but if you go into the overview here, down here, you can see the power consumption right there, the power consumption and budget, right? So currently I'm consuming 75 watts, right? And that's for the lights. It's for 2 cameras. It's for 2 access points. It's for 2 floodlights. And it's for the Unifi Access, the door. I think that's it. So I just want to make sure that it can handle that. Right, so 71 out of 90, that's fine. That won't go that high. Actually, what I can do is just try and switch on my floodlights, and we'll see here. I'll do it on my phone. I've got my phone here. I'll try and switch on the floodlights. I've got 2 of them, and we'll see what the power consumption then comes up at. It should be fine though. So I'm switching on 1, and you should be able to see that here. Maybe? No? Is it going to change? And then switch on the other. So what I can try and do is I go to the ports, and I can see which one is my floodlight. There's one of them there. It's using 1.26 watts. You can see there the PoE value. and there's the other one, 1.13 watts. So I don't know why they're different. Maybe one's brighter than the other. So we're still good. We're still well within the 90 watt power budget. But that's something to keep in mind. If you have something that's really heavily using PoE power, like if you have a lot of 4K cameras, for example, or some of the long range access points, you might want to update. For example, I have my industrial switch here. You can see that the budget is 440 watts, it's like massively higher. So maybe you want to upgrade to something like that. Or currently my office port switch has 222 watts. This is a 250 watt, but anyway. So, oh, there we go. It went up. Now it's 74.6. So that seems to be the max I'm going to be using because everything is turned on. So that's good. We're fine. We are good within the 90 watts. We checked that. Now we can install it. Alright, time to install this new switch instead of the old switch. So one thing I did do, I've just made a note of where all these PoE plugs go. I mean, it's not hard to plug them in right because it's 1 to 1, 2 to 2, etc. from the patch panel. But I want to label them correctly so I know where they go. So when I set this up in the Unifi controller, which we'll do in a minute, then I can put in the right naming. So yeah, I made a note of that. And this won't stay open. That's not annoying at all. Probably a good time now to say, or just tell you why I want to upgrade. Obviously this has 250 watts of power, this is only 90, but this is really loud. It's a little bit hard to hear. Well, it's not really loud, but it's constantly loud. So the fans in this are always on. They never switch off. And it makes quite a hum in here that's enough to sort of, you notice it all the time. So it's a space where we go through and we use it, etc. So it's a bit annoying. Also, this has the nice new screen for the AR and your stats and whatnot. So it's a little touchscreen here. But I can use that with the AR part of the Unifi Network app, which I've also made a video on, which I mentioned. And so that's kind of, and of course I want to keep my gear sort of up to date. But this is working just fine as intended. It's not broken or anything, but I do want to try and make it a bit more quiet. That's the main reason. So, all right, you're supposed to power this down, I think, before you unplug it and whatnot. But as far as I can tell, there's no shutdown function for this switch, whether that's on the phone app or in the web controller, web portal for the network controller. So I'm just going to yank the power to it. And based on previous power outages, it seems to do just fine. However, if you have a better suggestion, let me know in the comments, because it feels a bit weird just yanking the power. Yeah, so, God, this keeps closing. So we're going to fight with that and install this. All right, let's do that. Look at that. The old one is much bigger. I didn't realize that. Way bigger. So, okay, saving a bit of real estate as well. I'll take that. That's it. Now I just got to switch it on and adopt it. But we'll do that in the network controller. So that's next. Okay, the new switch is installed, well, in the rack. And now I'm back in the network controller. So you can see the old switch, the Office 24-port switch here, is offline. So I can actually just get rid of that. You can see there's 2 access points that are no longer active, or they're offline because, well, they're in a new switch. So once I adopt the switch, hopefully they come back online as well. And I don't know if you noticed, but the light was just flashing in here as well. So the LED panels were sort of starting as well, but at least they're back on. So I'm going to wait for this to show up. It should, as soon as that starts, there should be, actually I can just remove this to start with, I think. Or maybe I wanted this reference. See, I've got all the names here. Even though I've stored them, I saved them as a screenshot. I'll just leave it. I'll delete it afterwards because at least I can just hook the old one on, just in case something goes wrong. So we just got to wait for the switch to be ready to be provisioned. There we go, ready to add. So I'm going to just click add now. There we go. Adopting one device. There we can see that's the new one. We'll click on that. That's the new 24-PoE switch. It's being adopted. So once it's adopted, we can give it a name and go from there. Oh, something's happened. Look at that. It just popped up. Right, we don't have any clients or guests. No. Okay, let's have a look at the ports. Right, no, they're still disconnected. Alright, they're still getting ready. But uptime 4 minutes. PoE power. Oh, this says 95 watt budget. Interesting. The documentation says 90. If you know why that is, if you know the discrepancy, is it really 95 watt budget for PoE or not? Let me know in the comments what you reckon that means. Alright, it's online. So now we have the new switch. So can I go to ports? There we go. Alright, and you can see the uplink is, yep, that's actually the nano station. So let's see what else we got. It just says port 2, etc. Alright, so I'm going to go into the port management and just update all the names. Alright, so now the ports have been renamed, so I know where what is. But let's just go through and see what we got. So this is the newish port configuration screen. It's actually pretty cool. So you see all the ports that are in here. We can obviously manage each port as we see. So for example, the first one, there's the nano station here. So we got down here, we got the properties for that. So we're given a new name, port profile. We can power cycle each port, which for some reason, and one of the updates got really difficult. Now it's very easy again. I use that sometimes because it's very handy being able to do remotely power cycle a port to restart a device, for example. And then there's some port profile overrides. I tend to not fiddle with those. A couple of times I've switched off the PoE, or I've changed it. Just switched it off. But the other stuff, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what they do. I'm not a network expert, so I tend to leave it alone. But yeah, you can manage each port. There's the SFP ports here as well, which I'm not using in this particular switch. But these are pretty good for, that's for your upstream. So if you were connecting this to something else, now I'm connecting it to a nano station. That's how I'm getting the connection down to the house where the main UDM SE is. So I'm not using the SFPs in this case. So cancel that. Then we have some insights on what is using what and usage. Obviously this is a new device, so there is no usage, there's no insights yet. You can see here the entirely is like megabytes or kilobytes or bytes even, so we haven't done a lot with it, but you can go and see if a particular device is using a lot, or troubleshoot it in some sense. So packets and PoE usage, you actually see how much power they're using, so that's quite handy as well. Over time you can see if stuff goes, if something surges or go up and down. Really handy. I'll change the to close rather the port configuration screen. I'll just go back into it. I'm just going to rename it because I like things having a proper name. So we're going to call this Office 20 PoE Switch because that's the model of it. And now I know where it is. It's in the office. So I'll just save that. What other settings do we have? We have something about the screen brightness. That's a little LED screen. You can change that. We can put night mode on it. So multi-screen synchronization between the racks. So if there are multiple screens in the same rack, you can actually synchronize it between all the screens. That's kind of neat. I haven't actually done that, but okay. Services, management, VLAN. You can choose which VLAN manages. I just have the default. I don't use the other VLANs I have is for IoT devices and for the kids stuff, because who knows what they put on the network. SNMP, if you want to change that, there's the network, configure IP using DHCP or static. I'm just going to use DHCP for this. I have used static on some devices. And then you can manage it, which is all your locate, restart, etc., provision, and so on. So that's all there is. Switches are pretty simple, and this is now quiet. I can't hear it. It's fantastic. I would sit here and I can still hear the hum. It's about 6-7 meters that way, the server rack. So that way. Yeah, I could hear it. Now I can't. So let's just clean up the rest. We'll go into the Office 24 port switch, and I'm gonna go and forget that because I don't need it anymore, right? It's not being used in this network right now, at least. Maybe I'll find another use for it. So I'll forget that. It says it'll be stored to factory settings. Well, it won't because it's not connected, but I can reset it with a reset button as well. So I confirm that. There we go, and it's gone. So now I have a new Office 24-PoE switch. Yeah, it's a very good entry-level switch with a lot of ports. Unless you have a really big power budget or power need, the budget for this is 90 watts, which is enough for, I have what, 13 things connected to it, or 12 things, so that's a fair bit. But if you need a lot more, if you power much more powerful things like 4K cameras use a lot of power, long-range access points, seems like I have two, they use 6 and 8 watts, depending on how high the power has been wound up for distance. Unless you have a lot of those, this is a really good device. Super simple setup. You saw it. Plug it in, adopted it, and it just worked. There it was. It's straight into the Unifi network. So if I missed anything, if there's other questions you want to know about, like numbers maybe, there's a lot of numbers that come with these switches, and I don't understand all of them. But the specifications for it has numbers for all the different throughputs and bit rates, etc. This has 24 1 gigabit ports and 2 1 gigabit SFP ports. This does not have 2.5 gigabit as far as I'm aware, or higher. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. If you enjoyed the content, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. In any case. So quiet. I know.